Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tuktu. I'm Rustam, your host and the founder of Tuktu. Most of you know me, but in case some new ones joined, at Tuktu, we try to build better communities by connecting people who can support each other. Whether you're an older adult living alone at home, or you just had a baby, or you have someone who has some different needs, we're here for you, and we'll connect you with the best, safest, and most affordable people around from your community who can help with. Yeah, this can be any kind of help you're looking for. So today, super excited because this podcast comes from a lot of demand that has come from folks in the community. Especially, I'm speaking to those of you who are looking to move or families which are trying to decide if it's a good time to move, if it's a good time to find a new place, maybe downsize. I myself tried to change flats a few months ago, and it was just incredibly difficult. So I'm super excited today to welcome our guest, Brian. Brian is downsizing expert or a senior realtor. Brian, we'd love to welcome you, and you can start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what is SRES?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. So SRES stands for Seniors Real Estate Specialist, and what it is it's an extra layer of education in the form of a designation that the National Association of Realtors has for those who want to expand their horizons and specialize and work with seniors or those later in life to help them and empower them to move forward, maybe in ways that offer additional supports. So the SRES designation is something that I've decided to go out and get because it's a chosen demographic that I love to work with.
Super. Super.
Right?
And I'm so glad there are experts like you around, Brian. And so let's jump right in, right? I think a lot of folks who I speak to in the Tuktu community, and we serve over 3,000 people, uh, are always wondering when is it a right time? It's like, and families keep asking us, like, my dad is here, he's living alone, he's independent, but when is it a right time? And what advice would you give, so somebody who's thinking about downsizing and he's not really sure, how do they go through, like, what's the checklist?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of the times I talk to people who are considering, that their friends are telling them it's not a good time, or they're hearing in the news that it's not a good time, right? So is it a good time to sell? Well, that depends on a number of factors. But number one, how's the community performing, right? Number two, what are your needs, right? So, I work with a lot of discharge planners and, folks who are coming out of hospital and, retirement communities. And one of the things that I always hear is, don't wait till it's too late. In other words, if there's an accident and it could have been prevented, or the living environment isn't necessarily as safe as it once was for those who are physically unable to do steps as easy as they were once able to, um, you know maybe it's home modifications that may be considered, but at the same time, there's a cost involved. There's renovation time involved. There's inconveniences involved. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes, if it's a 4-bedroom home and you need to, go into a condo where there's an elevator and there's no stairs, or retirement community,
Makes
you
sense.
know, the situation is very unique to that individual person. So I always say, buy or sell based on your wants and needs at the time.
Great. And I love the phrase you use there, don't wait till it's too late, right? And we see that so often. We see that when we're providing services and we have a companion who's gone to somebody's place, and it's quite evident that they're having a really hard time managing. The house is not in perfect shape, there's things falling apart, and then we often tell the families in the and sometimes it's a lot more expensive. And I also like the fact that you mentioned it's a very personal decision, right? You have to be prepared for it. You're going to change communities. A question that branches out, like, how do you prepare? A lot of people struggle on the emotional side, right? Like, especially the attachment to the stuff that I have. Everything's got a sense of sentimental value. So how do we start? How do we start? How do we come and how do we say, like, hey, I've got a house full of memories, and and now you just show up. So just walk me through that, right?
Yeah, so oftentimes, the consideration to sell isn't even on the agenda until we know where they're going, right? So typically the perfect way that the situation can unfold um, goes in the sequence of, okay, understanding the value of the property, deciding when to move, putting a plan together for the options of where you can move, selecting a place, right? We'll go around, tour. Maybe it's a retirement community, maybe it's a condo, right? Once we secure that place, move out first. So we take all the items that you want to take with you, and those are things that you're definitely going to use. Things like clothing and things you use on a daily basis, right? But the stuff that you may not use every day or that you haven't used in a year, that's another category. And that's the stuff that we leave behind for the time being. So, in theory, you'd move out to your new place, you take the stuff that you're going to be using, you spend, a few days there and then you come back and you say, okay, can I really do without this stuff that I've left behind?
Hmm.
If the answer is yes, then we have our answer, right? And then we figure out how we can, best disperse, either sell, donate, or find a new home for these other items. And it's not always easy, right? There's, you're attached to these things, but I think reminding the client that there's always a reason, right? The motivation, I call it the big why, right? The reason why we're doing this, right? It's to you know maybe gain a better living environment that's safer for their current lifestyle. Maybe it's closer to family and friends. Maybe the home upkeep just isn't something that they can handle. Maybe it's financial. Maybe the neighborhood has changed, right? So there's a lot of reasons, but I would say it's again very individualized.
I like that. I mean, you're making it so less overwhelming than it is, right? With this sort of the iterative process that you described. And it is, in the end, it is a process of dissociation. It's a process of detachment to some things. I like the way how you said that you move in with the basic and then you go back and you check out, hey, did I even remember this thing over the last few weeks? And if I didn't, then it's probably not making such a substantial impact in my life anymore. Right. And then of course you go back in front. I think it's a good process. I think it's a great process of detaching from some of the cobwebs that you accumulated over a period of
I have something I call my contents management guide, which is something that I go through with the client to help them understand, the categories, right? Keep, disperse, and then based on the number of items that they're dispersing or not keeping, I recommend what we can do with them. Can we sell them in the secondhand market? Can we auction them off? Do we need to get an appraisal? What else or how else can we best, most efficiently and
time.
effectively um,
Wonderful. And Brian, we'll love a copy of the guide and we'll post it with our socials, the link to the guide. People can download it. I'm assuming this is something you would give for free and add value to the community, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. No, this is really helpful because these decisions aren't easy, and it's having somebody who can understand emotionally as well as practically what has to be done. Also, is conscious of the budget and the timelines, works with families, is definitely useful. Brian, maybe moving back and taking a more broader view, is there any trends that you're seeing in the market right now? What's going on?
Yeah, I would say there's always reasons to do things and not to do things, right? The best way to figure out the decision, and way to go forward and to get off that middle line of the fence is to lay out the options, right? Understand why, right? Why we're doing this, and change is uncomfortable, right? And the timeline is also important,
Absolutely.
because again, we don't want to be in a crisis situation where you don't have the options, right? And fast forward through all that decision making process to set up the place where you want to go versus the place that you might have to go without exploring the options or considerations beforehand, right?
Absolutely. No, this is it's super helpful, and I think you've hit a lot of great points today, Brian, and I really appreciate you're stepping in for that. So just maybe like as we wind up this talk, how does one get to you, or how does one get to senior real estate expert, and what's sort of the next steps if any of us who are listening to you right now are interested to know more? What do we do next?
Sure, yeah. So the name of my support system is called Transition with Ease, and the goal is to minimize stress and maximize value. So website is www.transitionwithease.ca. Phone number 416-433-6381.
We will share all this. We'll share all this with the listeners. And of course, any last comments or advice for the listeners today before we wind up?
I would say timeline. It all comes down to timeline. That's one of the first things I do when I talk to a client. We make a timeline. What's going to happen first? Step one, and usually there's a 12-step process. And we start with step one. And I always say you're in the driver's seat. I'm your co-pilot, but you're in the driver's seat. And I'm here to support you through that journey.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. This was, for me, it was an educational experience, such a learning experience talking to an expert like yourself. And of course, if you have any more questions, you can shoot them to me as well. I'll love to answer it. Next time, we have Rachel, who's a dementia expert, to talk to us a little bit more about detecting dementia. Brian, today, thank you. It was such a pleasure having you on board. Thanks.
Thank you.